Now, you may have heard of the Russian Revolution in 1917, where the communist Reds fought the Whites for rule over Russia. In the end, the Reds won. However, there is a lesser-known civil war one country over that you've probably never heard of, the Finnish Civil War. Its close ties in history with Russia has shaped many of this large empire's decisions.
So I know Finland is beside Russia geographically, but what is the history between the two countries?
All right, so Finland was a part of Sweden till it was conquered by the Russian Empire in 1809, and it became an autonomous region named the Grand Duchy of Finland under Russian rule.
So what was the reaction from Finland? Did they rebel against this change at all?
Surprisingly, Finland was pretty chill about the change in power. Because of their autonomous status, the Finnish people were able to keep much of their own culture as well as their administrative power. It wasn't until the Tsar, Nicholas II, and his plans of Russification a century later that the discontent of Russia's rule began to grow in Finland.
So you said Russification. What does that even mean? I've never heard of the word before.
So, William, Russification is when the Russian government tried to abolish cultural and administrative autonomy in non-Russian minorities. The only reason the Finnish people were okay with Russia taking them over to begin with. This process of Russification was one of the key factors that united many of the different social classes within Finland and ultimately led to Finland's Declaration of Independence.
Okay, so then what happened? How did World War I and the chaos from World War I affect their independence?
So in December 1917, the Russian Revolution was in full swing, so was World War I. Finland was like, yeah, we declare our independence. Because of the turmoil in Russia caused by these two events, it was the perfect opportunity for the Finns to slip under the radar. They could declare their independence, and the Russian government wouldn't retaliate because they had so much more bigger problems to deal with. But Finland's problems were just beginning. Their newly appointed government was deeply divided between those who wanted to support Russia and those who wanted to support Germany.
Okay, so how did this escalate into a civil war?
Well, William, picture this. You have two opposing political views, and you give each political party a military.
Sounds like it would end excellently. Best friends.
Recipe for disaster.
Okay, so who were the two military groups?
On one side, you had the pro-independent White Guards, and on the other, the socialist communist Red Guards. Let's first talk about the Red Guard. The Red Guard popped up many times in Finnish history and were often a very violent military group that the government would have to disband forcibly. They also had many previous ties in history with Russia, as many of their members were originated in Russia, so it would make sense that they would want to align with the Russian government. On the other side, you have the White Guard. The White Guards formed during World War I. They were a group of Finnish soldiers that actually went to Germany, where they were trained, where they fought. So it would make sense that that was where they'd want their government's ties to go, towards Germany. Why don't you tell us about the conflict, the actual things that happened in this civil war?
Sure. So the Finnish Civil War officially started in January of 1918, when some socialists and the Red Guards rose and took the capital Helsinki, as well as some urban and southern parts of Finland, and were joined by some Russians in northern Finland.
So why did they find the south so important? Because it's obviously a smaller bit of land.
So basically, the White Guard, or southern Finland was a way more urban and populated area than northern Finland. Because just the country itself is so far north, it's way colder, and so the more northern you go in Finland, the colder it is and just harder to do stuff. So it mainly consisted of farmland.
So the south was where their political and hub of everything was.
Yeah, their capital was there, and all their major cities were there.
All right, so how were the whites able to gain the upper hand in this conflict?
The White Guards had lots of experience supporting Germany in World War One, as well as having many Swedish volunteers, compared with the Red Guards, who were missing discipline and experience, which quickly led to the White Guards gaining key cities and the upper hand in the Civil War.
So what finally sent the whole thing crashing down? What tipped the scale in the whites' favor?
Well, Germany joined the Civil War supporting the White Guards and overtook Helsinki in February of 1918.
That's the capital, correct?
Exactly. So the Red forces then basically crumbled by May, bring to an end the Civil War with the White Guards victorious, backed by Germany.
So why didn't Germany take over Finland at that point?
So at the time, Germany was winning, was like at its peak military strength of World War One.
When it supported
when
Russia?
When it initially took over Helsinki. And so one reason could be that they didn't want to put troops in Finland, or like they didn't want to basically invade the country, and would rather just be allies with a pro-Germany country, especially since they had a lot of resources all over Europe currently. And very shortly after they took over Helsinki, the Western Europe did a massive spring offensive on Germany, which was one of the greatest battles that kind of led to Germany
Their defeats?
defeat in World War One.
All right, so better to have an ally than an enemy.
Exactly. Okay, so what were some of the consequences of the war?
So, when the Civil War ended with the White Guards the victors, they committed many atrocities to the remaining Red Guards. The Red Guards were hunted down and killed, often sentenced with no trial at all, and many civilians who were even thought to sympathize with the Red Guards were also captured and put into concentration camps. It is estimated that 38,000 people, 1% of Finland's total population, were killed during and in the direct aftermath of the Civil War.
Okay, so the Red Guards were obviously disbanded and kind of obliterated by the White Guards, but what ended up happening to the White Guards after the Civil War?
So, with the new formation of the Finnish government after the Civil War, the White Guards were no longer needed for the Civil War, obviously, though they did continue to be a specialized section of the Finnish military. Then, in 1934, 5 years before World War II, the White Guards became a voluntary defense training organization, though they did serve in the regular military during World War I. In 1947, under the Finno-Soviet Peace Treaty, the White Guards were officially disbanded. So, William, why don't you tell us about the overall effects, the things that happened in the future because of this war?
Okay, so in the end, Finland never really separated completely from Russia. After they signed the Declaration of Independence and the pro-independent White Guards won the Civil War, Finland continued to stay under the USSR's influence. Throughout the 20th century, Finland made treaty and peace agreements with Russia and stayed neutral in global affairs and issues, as well as never joined NATO or the EU.
So why didn't Finland join the NATO or EU? I know they are now, but why didn't they join it earlier?
So it was basically just to do with concerns that it would provoke Russia into invading Finland.
Something you definitely don't want to do.
Definitely not. With lots of tensions between the two countries, Finland was able to make a strong military and industrialize their economy. Although after the fall of the USSR, Finland has changed their stance and has been under increased influence from Western Europe, joining the EU in 1995 and introducing the euro in 2002, as well as joining NATO in early 2023.
All right, so the euro, you mentioning the euro there seems pretty insignificant in comparing those other two. Why do you mention it?
Basically, the euro is like everyone in the EU uses it, and so basically that's all of Europe. And by having a currency that everyone in Europe uses, it makes it easier to trade. So they have way better trade relations between the two countries.
So really just intertwining them more with the Western Europe than with Russia.
Exactly.
Kind of pulling away from them.
Yeah.
All right, and that's a wrap. Everything you ever need to know about the Finnish Civil War.